Republican President Hakainde Hichilema says corruption cases will now be concluded within 90 days. Leaders of the opposition in Parliament, Brian Mundubile, has charged that the UPND administration has performed very badly in the fight against corruption, contrary to President Hichilema's assertion. Republican President Hakainde Hichilema says corruption cases will now be concluded within 90 days. In his speech to Parliament on the progress made in the application of national values and principles, President Hichilema says with the changes made at the Anti-Corruption Commission, Director of Public Prosecutions, and the creation of the Economics and Financial Crimes Court, corruption cases must not take 2 years. President Hichilema says that the dismissal of government officials from Lapra province for alleged involvement in the transportation of stolen minerals is a demonstration that there will be no sacred cows in the fight against corruption, past, present, and future. Those dismissed are Lapra province District Commissioner Monton Segazwe and his Anchilenge counterpart Robert Mutepuka. He has stressed the need for every Zambian to get involved in the fight against corruption because money lost to corruption is far too much. Mr. Hichilema says that the fight against corruption embarked on by his administration should not be deemed selective. He states that the country's economy went down to negative 2.8% largely due to corruption.
I know someone wants to hear this. Even more people. To strengthen the fight against corruption, we are reorganizing the leadership and management of investigative wings and also increasing resources to support the operation of these institutions. Just wait and see in the months ahead. In our fight against corruption, there shall be no sacred cows. There shall be no sacred cows. Corruption of the past, corruption of the present, corruption of the future. I listen to what people say, Madam Speaker, and I was hearing noises, no, this government does not look at corruption of the present. The test of the pudding is in the eating. You have seen in the last 10 days what this government has done. The president's own appointees, as at last night, they've been removed. Here is the message for you. Here is the message for you and the nation. Do not call the fight against corruption selective. Do not call it ethnic based. If you took public money, you did not take it for your ethnic group. You took it for yourself. Madam Speaker, I am engaging our traditional leaders as late as yesterday, and we agreed no subject of a particular chief will run to the chief when they are called to account over corruption. Because this has been the habit of the past.
And President Hichilema has bemoaned the rate at which marriages are breaking up in the country, describing the situation as worrisome. He has stressed that strong marriages and families are a foundation for a healthy civilized society. Mr. Hichilema says that the rate at which marriages are breaking up in the country should be a source of concern to everyone. He has called upon everyone to respect each other in marriages, which he says is very important.
Madam Speaker, strong marriages, I return to family. Strong marriages and families are a foundation for a health and civilized society, united society. Education helps to inject some sense of responsibility to our citizens. Don't we know that? We know it. The rate at which marriages are breaking up in our country is worrisome. We must all be concerned. Human rights, I must say, Madam Speaker, as a community member myself, as all these members of parliament are, sometimes we misinterpret the meaning of human rights to imply no respect for a partner in the home, and that one can do what they wish.
On patriotism, President Hichilema says that this is key in the quest to attain national security and national unity. He has stressed the need for citizens to develop a sense of pride, devotion, and attachment to the country, including respect for national symbols such as the national flag, coat of arms, public seal, and the national motto, One Zambia, One Nation. President Hichilema says patriotism also entails taking care of public assets, including power installations, bridges, among others. He has observed that Zambians have continued to exhibit patriotism through consumption of locally produced goods and services. Bite.
Madam Speaker, patriotism and national unity are key in our quest to attain social and economic development. Key to attaining national security, which is our responsibility, all of us. We need to develop a sense of pride, devotion, and attachment to our beloved country, Zambia, an estate granted to us by God, who put us in this estate together, 72, 73 ethnic groups. God's wisdom can never be challenged by any one of us. All we need to do as a Christian nation is to respect the choice God made to put us together. Beautiful. Great. Indeed. Indeed. We need to develop a sense of pride, devotion, attachment to our country, including respect for our national symbols. The coat of arms, the national flag, the public seal, as well as the motto, One Zambia, One Nation, One People. I shall repeat for someone to hear it properly.
President Hichilema says the economic reforms his administration is pursuing might be painful to the Zambian people. They are necessary in order to cure the economy. President Hichilema says where the country is going is clear. Mr. Hichilema says that the economic reforms are meant to grow the economy. President Hichilema states that he gets embarrassed when countries that had smaller economies than Zambia are now bigger in economic size. Leader of the opposition in Parliament, Brian Muntubile, has charged that the UPND government has performed very badly in the fight against corruption, contrary to President Hichilema's statement that the fight against corruption has been intensified. Mr. Muntubile says the fight against corruption under the UPND administration is more on persecution. Reacting to the presidential speech to Parliament, Mr. Muntubile says the fight against corruption has targeted political opponents. Here is a report.
The government has fared very badly in the fight against corruption. It's been more of political persecution. There are a number of outstanding cases, which cases we even want to see in the Auditor General's report. Number one is the procurement of fertilizers which happened at $50 million instead of 35. The contract of $100 million under the Ministry of Health. The movements of the Minister of Foreign Affairs when he moved with a heavy baggage and said it contained calendar. We need more information on that. The letter, attributed the Minister of Health having written a letter to a contractor soliciting for a grant. We needed commitment from government. So when I say they fared badly, I'm citing those examples.
Again, we reiterated in this address by His Excellency that the fight against corruption is not a witch hunt. It's not against an individual, but against those that could have plundered national resources. And it is also very important to note that when this was last spoken of by His Excellency in his first address, we talked about the concept of fighting corruption past, present, and future. But now we are in an environment where that has been proven, because we have a situation where those that are presently involved in questionable activity have been taken to book, regardless of the fact that they are presidential appointees.
It is hard to realize that some of our colleagues, comrades, district commissioners and the deputy permanent secretary have been relieved of their duties. We never saw such a trend before in the previous government, where we had ministers, where we had people who were even attending court sessions with their immunity in terms of appointed portfolios without being undressed such privileges. As a youth and as a deputy national youth chairperson of politics and mobilization, I would also want to echo certain messages that which His Excellency has mentioned.
Motivational speaker and UPND sympathizer Mubita Nawa has been detained in police custody in connection of two offences of giving false information to a public officer and assault occasioning actual bodily harm. Mr. Nawa is charged together with 9 other people who include a couple of Lusaka's Makeni area, Lukama Kanguya, 43, and Isaac Kanguya, 55, who were earlier detained in Mkushi. Mr. Nawa was arrested in Solwezi, where he is detained and is due to be transported where the alleged offences were committed. Central Province Police Commissioner David Chileshe said the police have jointly charged and arrested a couple from Lusaka for the offence of giving false information to a public officer and assault occasioning actual bodily harm. Mr. Chileshe says the couple went to Mkushi police station and lied to the officer in charge and other government officials that the government of the Republic of Zambia had given Sako mine in Mkushi to unknown youths and that they were free to commence mining activities when in fact this was not true. He says that the trio, whilst acting together with others unknown, did also assault and occasion actual bodily harm to Bright, aged 30, James Ndalama, aged 31, Stephen Siame, aged 24, Siwila Manasseh, aged 30, all security guards, and Hajpola Mambo, aged 38, a truck driver. Mr. Chileshe said other persons who are yet to be interviewed in connection with same offences are Kabanga Sheshem, other names not known, John Smith, Lewis, other names not known, Musonda, other names not known, Kolopa, other names not known, Hendricks, other names not known, Dominic, other names not known, and Mwansa Charles. A French solar energy firm is said to electrify more than 5,000 households in the rural communities of Zambia by 2024. This follows the completion of feasibility studies which were undertaken by General du Solar to determine the scope of works needed to develop, construct, and operate mini solar grids in Zambia. General du Solar is an independent electricity producer and has more than 300 solar power plants in France with an hourly production capacity of 5 gigawatts. During a tour of the solar power plant in Soudan, France, Zambia's ambassador to France, Dr. Christine Kasavasata, was informed that preparatory works to set up solar power plants in Zambia have advanced and 9 villages across the country are expected to benefit from the project. General du Solar Director for Africa and Middle East, Alexis Rebinda, says that the project has been designed to meet the demands of the people in need of electricity. And Dr. Kaseba has commended General du Solar for choosing Zambia as the best destination for foreign direct investment and assured the investors of the government's commitment to safeguard their investment. This is contained in a statement obtained by Q News. The Zambia Land Alliance ZLA is pleased and feels vindicated that President Hakainde Hichilema has voiced concern over the conversions of customary land to state land as a result of large-scale land investments. ZLA Executive Director Patrick Msole says that these conversions have resulted in the thousands of Zambians across the country being displaced from their land where they were born and grew up without following the provision of the resettlement policy. Minister Msole, however, states that as much as ZLA applauds President Hichilema for voicing concern, they feel that accountability for the illegal conversions need to be extended to all players who played a role in the process. He says that the public needs to understand that the chiefs lay at the bottom of the chain of the land conversion process, as consent by the chief is only the initial step. Mr. Msole states that therefore accountability for the conversion of huge tracts of customary land cannot and should not end with the chiefs, but that the councils should also be held accountable for their decisions because they should have conducted due diligence and endorsed the conversions through full council meetings. He adds that the Commissioner of Lands should also take more responsibility because the Commissioner is the only official who has powers to issue a certificate of title.
Over the years, the Zambia Land Alliance has been speaking out on the rapid and massive conversions of customary land to state land as a result of large-scale land investments. These conversions have resulted in thousands of Zambians across the country being displaced from the land where they were born and grew up without following the provisions of the resettlement policy. ZLA is now pleased and feels vindicated that the Republican president is singing from the same hymn sheet with the organization by questioning the chiefs about how thousands of hectares were converted without consultation. We feel this is a good start in the right direction. Much as ZLA applauds President Hichilema for voicing concern, we feel that accountability for the illegal conversions need to be extended to all players who had a role in the process. The public may need to understand that the chiefs lie at the bottom of the chain of the land conversion process. The consent by the chiefs is only the initial step. After the chief signs the conversion, consent form number 2, the form goes to the council that has the mandate and responsibility to conduct due diligence on the land to ensure that there are no other interests that will be affected by the conversion, and that the size of the land in question is within the chief's jurisdiction, which is only 250 hectares maximum. After the council has physically inspected the land in question, they endorse the consent and recommend the conversion of the land to the Commissioner of Lands.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Court in Kitwe has convicted and fined Pingani Auto Services Limited 89 million kwacha after finding the company guilty on 22 counts of false returns and statements and evasion of tax contrary to Section 43 and 44 of the Value Added Tax Act, Chapter 331 of the Laws of Zambia. In the same court, Santorin Investments Limited has been fined 124 million kwacha in another case for fraudulently claiming input value added tax VAT from various Copperbelt-based companies. The fines are to be paid on or before 30th of March 2023, failure to which warrants of distress will be issued to the convicted companies. Facts of the cases are that the two companies, in purported compliance with the law, provided to the Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA information, namely tax invoice numbers purporting to have been supplied with taxable goods by various Copperbelt-based companies when not, thereby evading paying of value-added tax to the government of the Republic of Zambia. And Zambia Revenue Authority ZRA Corporate Communications Manager Oliver Nzala has sternly warned taxpayers that the authority will prosecute any taxpayer submitting false returns and evading tax. Advocates for National Advocacy and Development ANDD is urging government to heed to calls by the mine unions on the Copperbelt to return Konkola Copper Mines KCM to Vedanta Resources. Mine unions recently requested President Hakainde Hichilema to hand back KCM to Vedanta Resources owing to the continued operational challenges at the mines. ANDD Executive Director Samuel Banda notes that the calls for government to hand over the mines to Vedanta Resources are getting louder, an indication that people are looking forward to the restoration of mining glory on the Copper Belt. Mr. Banda states that any further delay by government to hand over KCM to Vedanta will continue posing a challenge with regards to effective operations. He says government should listen to mine unions being an integral stakeholder representing the interest of many stakeholders. Mr. Banda states that it is clear that KCM is limping and as a result slow down trade and commerce, which is a recipe for low production and consequently job and business losses.
We wish to urge the government to heed calls by the mine unions on the Copper Belt to hand over KCM to Vedanta Resources as the legal owners so that the mine can begin to start operating at optimum level and create the much needed employment and business opportunities and revamp the economy of the Copper Belt and the economy of our country as a whole. The mine unions being an integral stakeholder that is representing the interests of many stakeholders, including the employees, it is very imperative that the government listens to their desires, the government listens to their aspirations in this regard to hand over KCM to Vedanta Resources. We want to indicate that we commend President Hakainde Hichilema for showing willingness and strong commitment to resolve the impasse, the mining impasse of KCM and Vedanta Resources. However, we are pleading the president to expeditiously resolve this issue so that KCM can begin to operate fully and revamp the mining sector. As you are aware that Zambia's economic performance is highly dependent on the mining industry as it accounts about 75% of our GDP.
Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Permanent Secretary Mambo Hamaundu says his ministry is working on modalities that will ensure that drinking places are not near schools, churches or clinics. Mr. Hamaundu says over time it has been noted that some drinking places are near schools, a situation that leads to children getting involved in drinking beer instead of being in class. He adds that it is high time the councils start doing things the right way by ensuring that liquor licenses are not given out for the sake of giving, but should ensure that drinking places are in designated places. Mr. Hamaundu tells Q News in an interview that this, however, happened in a term, but is I beg your pardon. Mr. Hamaundu tells Q News in an interview that this, however, cannot happen in a day, but is a process that will ensure that things are done in the right way.
Without saying that when one is granting a license, to run a public place, a bar, they must take cognizance of the fact of the environment in which this particular bar will be operating in. It is, it's just like you can't have a bar and a church next to one another. And of course, over a period of time, we had seen that these things are happening. So it is high time we begin to look at these things so that a bar must not be next to a school, because the school is a place of learning. A bar must not be located next to a clinic, because people are not feeling well. They need an environment which is quiet. They need serenity. So it is necessary that the council really begin to do things the way that they are supposed to be done. Licenses must not just be dished out just for the sake of dishing out. So this is something which the councils will begin to look at. Of course, it might not happen immediately, but it's a process. It's a process towards ensuring that we restore things to the way they are supposed to be. Ordinarily, when you have a bar, even the hours of operations are defined, and I think the challenge that has been there is that people do not observe what is contained or what is prescribed within their licenses. They just want to operate anytime.
Construction works under the 2022 Constituency Development Fund, CDF-funded community projects worth more than 7 million kwacha in Rumezi are earmarked to commence following the signing of contracts with the 15 contractors. Last year, Lumezi Town Council shortlisted a total of 16 recommended community projects, which were projected to cost 13,935,384.84, covering the education, health, water, and infrastructure sector. Following approval of the purported contracts by the Attorney General's Office, Lumezi Town Council has signed contracts with 15 contractors for construction works worth 7,547,070 kwacha, pursuant to the Public Procurement Act No. 8 of 2020, Section 72(2)(e) and Section 71(1). This is in addition to the procurement of a grader last month by the local authority at 2,030,000 kwacha as part of the community projects. Addressing contractors after the signing of contracts for service delivery, Lumezi Town Council Secretary Mary Sinkala warned that the council will not accept low-quality works and that any contractor who failed to meet expectations risks not getting any other contract. Ms. Sinkala emphasized that the local authority does not want the use of substandard materials from contractors just because projects are in the rural areas. She says it is the council's desire to achieve infrastructure that benefit the community.
It's 3 months. Can we try to finish in 3 months? So let's try to stick to time, specified time for the project as well as quality mix. Good materials as well. Good standard of materials. We don't want low standard materials because the school is in the bush. At least they can be proper standard so that even next time we'll check your record to say this did a good work. We can still continue to award you the contracts. But if you disappoint us at the beginning, then it becomes difficult for the local authority to engage you in other projects. So let's do the best that we can do so that we achieve the best infrastructure for the communities, for the pupils, the health centers, and many more other structures that we will be engaged to do. Otherwise, thank you so much for making it. There will be a date set for the site handover next week, the date from Monday up to Friday. So you'll be communicated.
In sports news, Football Association of Zambia First General Secretary Adrian Kashala has left his position at the Football House and returned to the Zambia Police Service, where he came from on secondment before he was retired in national interest under the PF regime. He was reinstated in the service by the New Dawn government and has since been elevated to the position of Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commanding Officer at Paramilitary. FAR's President Andrew Kamanga has confirmed that Kashala has left Football House. Kamanga says Kashala will no longer serve as First General Secretary. He says in the interim, FAR's Registrar Ivar Lengwe will act as General Secretary until a substantive replacement is found. Kamanga has, on behalf of the FAR's executive, thanked Kashala for his selfless service to the game. He says FAR's will be open to utilizing Kashala's experience in various areas of the game as he is an asset. For more in international news, we monitored DW News.
Right, well now, after a year of war, there's no sign of either side slowing down, yet even Ukraine's staunch ally, the United States, has said the war cannot be won by military means, and it's urged diplomacy. So what does the past year tell us about how the conflict will continue into the future, or how it might end?
1 year of constant fighting. A new Russian offensive already underway. Will the two sides ever sit down and make a deal? There have been several rounds of talks, but both sides have blamed the other for negotiating in bad faith. The two sides did come together in a deal to allow grain to be exported from Ukraine's ports, but the agreement only happened under immense international diplomatic pressure, with a hunger crisis looming in many parts of the world. The relationship between Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky makes the prospects for peace even more remote. Putin describes the Ukrainian government as fascist and neo-Nazi. Zelensky has said that he's ready for dialogue with Russia, but not while Putin is in power. Russia is unlikely to subdue Ukrainians, who see the war as an existential battle. But if Ukraine runs too low on ammunition or soldiers, it will be difficult to resist Russia's overwhelming superiority in numbers. Analysts say Putin sees conquering Ukraine as his legacy, restoring Russia's status as an imperial power. He stakes so much on the war he can't afford to lose face by backing down. But if enough Russian soldiers die, he may face domestic backlash and change his calculations. That means the conflict has settled into a contest to see which country can stand more pain, with Russia now losing hundreds or even thousands of soldiers every week, and Ukrainians suffering through an invasion that has driven many from their homes and destroyed much of the country. Early this year, Russia said no diplomatic solution was in sight, and both sides have big plans to take territory. Any solution seems months away at the very least.
The human cost of the war in Ukraine has been devastating, but the prospect of one day rebuilding after the war gives hope to many Ukrainians. But the task will be monumental. So much has been destroyed and the economy is in ruins. An initial estimate by the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine shows that the Ukrainian economy shrank by 30% in 2022. Inflation hit a peak in October at 26.6% and has been persistently high for months. Despite the ongoing attacks from Russia, Ukraine is already looking towards the cost of rebuilding. Projections from the government, European Commission, and World Bank jointly estimate that that bill could be nearly $350 billion. For more on the economic costs of the war, I'm joined by Maxim Timchenko. He's the CEO of DTEK. That's the largest private investor in the energy industry in Ukraine. Welcome. Now, blackouts have become a fact of life in Ukraine since the war. Can you describe to us the state of Ukraine's grid infrastructure at the moment?
So one year ago, we started our war, energy war, and the DTEK is in the front line of this war. You know that Putin and Russians has been defeated on military front line, and they started physical destruction of infrastructure, especially from 10th of October when we experienced the massive missiles and drones attack. Since that time, we lost about 50% of our generation capacity. In some regions, we have devastating destruction of our grid, but we are fighting. And I think it's a good example, Kyiv region, when it was liberated in April last year, we managed to restore power supply in 45 days. Today, we don't have blackouts at the extent we had three months ago. Of course, we need billions of dollars of investments into power grid at the moment. But what is the most important for us, the people with light and heat today at this moment.
Perhaps you can give us an indication, how difficult is it to ensure that these systems come back online?
It was quite difficult. On 23rd of November, we had so-called national blackout when most of our generation was switched off because of protection software after attack, and we managed to bring back the whole system in 24 hours. So it's not easy, but if we work as a team, thermal generation, nuclear, hydro, and we work all together, so we know how to bring it back. Of course, we paid very high price for that, and talking about us, we lost 141 employees. This is highest possible price so that people have electricity at the moment.
What's it like to work under these attack conditions?
I would say that this is indication of heroism of all people, civilians, our power engineers. So they go to power station knowing that this power station is the target of Russian missiles. So this is heroism, and I think that people just do their work, and basically the mission of our company is to bring light and warmth to people. This is everyday job for all of us.
Providing light and warmth. Maxim Timchenko, CEO of DTEK, the largest private investor in the energy industry in Ukraine. Thank you so much.
shadow there lies hope, got tension with a knife. I find it hard to